Most people get this completely backwards. When they picture the empath in a relationship with a narcissist, they picture someone fragile, someone who cried too easily, loved too deeply, gave too much, someone who, in the end, couldn't handle it anymore and finally broke. And when they picture the narcissist, they picture control, composure, someone who had the upper hand the entire time and simply moved on. A moment the empath was gone, cold, unbothered, already looking for the next person before the door even closed. That picture is not just wrong, it is the exact opposite of what is actually happening beneath the surface. And once you understand what is really going on, once you see the mechanics underneath the performance, you will never look at this dynamic the same way again. Here is what nobody tells you: the empathy the same way again. Here is what nobody tells you: the empathy the same way. What looked like strength was a costume. What looked like weakness was in reality the most sophisticated form of emotional labor one human being can perform for another. And the moment the empath stops performing that labor, the moment they walk away, something begins inside the narcissist that most people never see, and most narcissists will never admit.
It is not relief, it is not indifference, it is not a quick pivot to someone new. What begins is a collapse, quiet at first, then louder, then impossible to contain. A psychological unraveling that starts the second the empath is no longer in the room. But before we get there, you need to understand something fundamental about how a narcissist actually functions. Not the surface behavior, not the charm, not the cruelty, the machinery underneath. Because without understanding the machinery, none of what follows will make complete sense. A narcissist does not have a stable internal world. That is not an insult. It is a clinical reality, where most people carry within them a relatively consistent sense of who they are, what they value, how they feel about themselves on a given day. The narcissist has a gap, a structural absence where that self-generated stability would normally live. And because that stability cannot come from within, it must come from within. It must be extracted from the environment, from other people, from reactions, from attention, from emotional responses, from conflict, from admiration, from fear. All of it feeds the same function. All of it temporarily fills the same gap. This is what psychologists call narcissistic supply, and it is not a luxury for the narcissist.
Someone else's crisis. Your own feelings no longer subordinated to someone else's volatility. Your own voice no longer edited for someone else's comfort. That spaciousness can feel terrifying after years of contraction. It can feel like emptiness, when it is actually, for the first time in a long time, freedom. And here's what that freedom makes possible. When you stop using your extraordinary capacity for empathy in service of someone who cannot receive it, when you redirect it toward yourself first, toward people who have the emotional architecture to actually meet you, toward relationships built on genuine reciprocity rather than disguised dependency, something shifts that cannot be undone. You stop being the person who holds everything together for everyone else at the cost of yourself. You start being the person whose presence adds to a room rather than sustaining it. You stop being the solution to someone else's brokenness. You start being the author of your own wholeness. The narcissist's psychological hell begins when you walk away, but your real life, the one that was always waiting on the other side of that door, begins at exactly the same moment. The hell is theirs, the freedom is yours. And the only question that remains, the only one worth sitting with now, is this. Now that you understand what you are carrying, now that you can see clearly what it cost you and what it was never your responsibility to carry in the first place, what will you choose to do with the extraordinary capacity for love that you never lost, even when everything around you was trying to convince you that you had? Because that capacity did not disappear inside that relationship. It was not destroyed. It was not diminished. It was misdirected, and misdirected is not broken. Misdirected simply means it is time to turn.